Welcome to the final part in our SpooliT demonstration suite. Let's perform a deep dive into SpooliT Automation Rules. So, what exactly is an automation rule? Well, it's how you enable straight-through processing of specific tasks such as 1. Emailing reports. 2. Exporting reports. 3. Splitting larger reports into smaller chunks. 4. Converting report data into Excel or CSV formats. 5. Managing your output queues. 6. Archiving important report data for compliance and auditing. And so much more. Think of automation rules as your personal assistant who schedules all your tasks and keeps you on track. In SpooliT, everything starts with a selection rule, the what, and ends in an automation rule, the when. Depending on your organizational needs, you decide which reports or output queues to process, and when things need to occur. An automation rule is like a scheduled job or a scheduled process. Some schedules run once, others hourly. Some run daily, overnight. Yet others run after your month end. Some run in real time. These are called always rules. Once your rules are in place, and you have automated them, then it's simply a set and forget process. Stuff just happens in the background, seamlessly. SpooliT Automation Rules are part of the SpooliT Server Suite, which is currently displayed here. This is where you define your various rules. 1. Selection rules, the what. 2. Categorization rules, the where. 3. Distribution rules, the who. 4. Automation rules, the when. All rules and templates are managed inside the SpooliT server user interface. Rules work seamlessly with your one or many IBM i Series AS400 machines or partitions. Let's start by performing a quick refresher on creating a selection rule before we do a deep dive into automation rules. Earlier, we created a SpooliT folder called Leadership Team, Cobra, which is a rules group, sometimes referred to as a categorization folder. This rules group folder contains several selection rules for the Cobra leadership team. Let's start by creating a new selection rule to process a specific report. Right-mouse-click on the rules group folder using the File Explorer. Select Create Rule from the pop-up menu. This time, we will use the Rules Wizard, which is a good method for beginners, to guide us through, step by step. Step 1 is to provide a good description for your selection rule. Enter a meaningful descriptor so that it's easy to understand and locate, particularly when you end up with potentially hundreds of rules. You can see that the rule group is already populated because it is context-sensitive based on your prior selections. Press the Next button to proceed. Select your IBM i Series from the drop-down. Then press the Next button. Select your output queue from the drop-down, or type the output queue name and the library name. Then press the Next button. Here, we will select the first option, to process a single report from the chosen output queue. Press the Next button to proceed. Locate the report from the output queue. Note, this wizard is best suited for beginners, and for smaller output queues. If you have larger output queues, then use the standard method to create selection rules. Make your selection. Press the Next button to proceed. If you're happy with the report attributes, press the Next button. Otherwise, amend attributes, or remove attributes if you wish to broaden the selection rule. Remember that, the more attributes, the more specific the selection rule. The less attributes, the broader the selection rule. Note, system, output queue, and library are mandatory. Press the Next button to proceed. Here, we will select Yes because this selection rule will use a splitting template. Press the Next button to proceed. In this example, we are defining a splitting selection rule, so scroll until you locate an existing splitting template specific for this report. Make your selection. Press the Next button to proceed. Next, we will choose the file format we want the report data exported into. Make your selection. Press the Next button to proceed. For this splitting rule, we want to distribute via email. Press the Next button to proceed. Finally, press the Next button to advance to the automation phase. The last step is to automate your new selection rule. Let's dive right in together. Automate the selection rule. Press the Next button to proceed. Next, we need to choose the interval. Make your selection and follow the prompts. Press the Next button to proceed. Because SpooliT knows you're working with a splitting rule, you only have one option available to you. Different types of rules would enable further options where they are applicable. Select Split and Email. Press the Next button to proceed. There is no valid reason to change the name of this automation rule, so let's stick with the same name as the selection rule. Keeping names aligned between selection rules and automation rules is best practice. Press the Next button to proceed. Here, the main scheduled job details are displayed. Whilst you can introduce many additional tasks for your automation rule, we will keep this rule simple. It will have just one task that splits a report, and the splitting template already has the logic to split and email the report chunks to the right recipients. So, there is nothing else to select here. Press the Apply button to save your automation rule. Congratulations, you have learned a new way to create a selection rule and then how to automate the selection rule, using the Rules Wizard. The wizard is a good method if you're a beginner using SpooliT. Experienced users can use the fast-track methods for rule creation. Press OK. Once your rule is automated, you will return to the SpooliT Server File Explorer. Your newly created rule will appear within the correct rules group you selected earlier. To review the properties of a selection rule, right-mouse click on the rule and select Properties. This dialog shows you the selection rule you created earlier using the wizard. Here you see your various spool file attributes that form the basis of your selection rule. If you need to make changes, do so here. In this example, this is a splitting rule. Click on the Splitting Rules tab. Review your splitting rule, then press the Apply button to save your changes. Otherwise, if no changes, press OK or Cancel. Next, let's click on the Automation tab. Your automation rules are displayed here. You will see that there is a filter in place so that only Cobra * automation rules are displayed. In the left side File Explorer, you can see several interval nodes. Always, Once, Hourly, Daily, Weekly, Monthly, Yearly. For example, if you want to filter to see only daily automation rules, then double-click on the Daily node. To see all your always, real-time automation rules, then double-click on the Always node, and so on. To remove your interval filter, double-click on the Archive level node above the interval nodes. This will load all automation rules. If you right-mouse click on any interval node, you can define a new automation rule using the manual method. Right-mouse click on the interval node, choose New, then choose Job. On the right side, you see all your automation rules. You can click on any automation rule and either use toolbar buttons, or right-mouse click submenu options, to perform certain actions. Here, we will right mouse click on an automation rule. A pop-up submenu appears. Here you can perform actions for an automation rule, such as delete, rename, reset, hold, release, view or edit the automation rule. Note, normally in production, rules are released so they can run according to their scheduled intervals. However, there might be good reasons to hold a specific automation rule, such as performing maintenance on the rule. Other times, a specific automation rule might have already run today, if it's a daily rule, but you want to run it again after a report was regenerated. So, you could reset that rule so it executes again. Sometimes, there might have been a problem with your month-end batch processing and a group of reports were not generated. The monthly automation rule interval ran as it should, however, due to a bug in your ERP, some reports were missing. Your IT department fixes the problem in your ERP. You now need to either reset some automation rules or release some automation rules that you earlier held so reports can be properly processed. This is the location where the SpooliT administrator performs these types of actions, and more. Here, we want to select a particular automation rule and either review or edit the rule. Double-clicking on an automation rule loads this dialog. Here, you can view or make changes as necessary. From the Automation tab, if you need to switch the display, then click on the Archive, Categories, Rules, Output Queues tab, left of the Automation tab. You're returned to the SpooliT Server File Explorer where you can work with selection rules and your IBM iSeries output queues. Double-clicking on a particular selection rule will display reports, if they have been archived or if they are splitting rules. Navigating down to your IBM iSeries, you can navigate to and work with your output queues and spool file reports. Let's now take a look at an automation rule that has been set up to archive a certain spool file. There is a corresponding selection rule that was defined earlier. This automation rule simply automates that process. There are no other selection options required, so we can press Apply, Cancel, or OK. Next, let's take a look at an automation rule that has been set up to export certain spool files into a physical folder location. This automation rule was set up by selecting an existing selection rule. You can click on the tabs under Export to define path locations and file formats, or even file naming options here. Here, we have chosen to dynamically create subfolders by year, month, day, for better folder and file organization when files are exported. Then, we specify the export location. Finally, we specify the file formats we wish to export reports into. In this example, we are exporting using a PDF format. Now, let's take a look at an automation rule that has been set up to email certain spool files to specific recipients. In this example, we can see that this automation rule is linked to its selection rule. Remember that it is the selection rule that defines the what. The when is the automation rule. Next, let's take a look at the file formats that will be used when emailing the report to the recipients. Next, let's take a look at an automation rule that has been set up to split certain spool files into smaller report chunks and distribute them. The automation rule is linked to its corresponding splitting selection rule, and that's where we define the splitting template to use as part of that selection rule. The splitting selection rule and its corresponding template contains all the brains about how to split a report, where to export it, where to email it, etc. This automation rule simply defines the when. That is, when this splitting rule should run, daily, weekly, monthly, or in real time, etc. In this example, we can see that this automation rule is linked to its corresponding selection rule, and its purpose is to archive reports. When the report is successfully archived, it is stored in the virtual folder that is the selection rule name. There are no further applicable options, so we can press OK or Cancel buttons to leave this dialog. Most of the automation rules we have looked at so far only perform one single task. Next, let's take a look at a more complex rule, where we will introduce the concept of performing more than one task. In this example, you can see there are 5 separate tasks to be performed. Tasks are performed according to a task sequence number 1 to 5. 1. Archive a report. 2. Export reports. 3. Email a report. 4. Copy a report from one output queue to another output queue. 5. Move a report from its original output queue into a saved output queue. Task Sequence 1 archives the report. Task Sequence 2 exports the report to a physical folder location in the required file format. Task Sequence 3 emails the report to its intended recipients in the required file format. Task Sequence 4 copies a report from one output queue to another output queue. The purpose is to preserve the original spool file report after processing, but keep it in a secondary saved output queue. Alternatively, Task Sequence 5 could be used instead to move a report from its original output queue into a saved output queue. The purpose is to keep the original output queue clean after processing whilst preserving the original report. Here, we can choose to hold an automation job, release a job, or reset a job. It is important that you consider setting up a daily housekeeping automation rule. As with all systems and databases, some cleanup routines and preventative maintenance can help keep your systems and processes healthy. We recommend setting up a daily housekeeping job. This will perform SpooliT archive database repair, look for orphans, perform indexing repairs, and other important housekeeping tasks. Click on the Daily Interval node on the left side. Create a new automation job. Define the date range that starts today and ending the year 3000. Enter a name such as Daily Housekeeping. Ensure you always enable archive database repairs and optionally retention rules. Click on the Housekeeping tab. Enable this task. Ensure the task sequence is Task Sequence 1. Select the Compact and Repair SpooliT Archive Database option. Optionally, set up your retention rules here. The default is 0, which means keep all audit retention database records. Now, let's take a look at some SpooliT scheduler options that can help you configure certain automation settings to fit in with your organization's routines. You can monitor for errors or alerts. You can inform operations and administrators of SpooliT issues via email. You can optionally send iSeries messages to operations and administrator user profiles of any detected errors or alerts or when rules did not run. You can define if SpooliT should be automatically started without operator intervention. You can optionally define the operational hours for SpooliT. That is, when SpooliT should start to process automation rules and when it should go to sleep. These parameters can be different for each day of the week according to your organizational needs. For example, between Monday to Thursday we want SpooliT to process automation rules starting at 4 a.m. after day end is completed. We need SpooliT to go to sleep at 11 p.m. Monday to Thursday because there are housekeeping jobs, day end processing, etc., that needs to run between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. On Fridays those operational times might change slightly to cater for weekend processing. On weekends, we need SpooliT to process reports in a smaller window, and to go asleep during longer periods to cater for weekend processing, month-end processing, systems maintenance, applying software and PTF upgrades, Windows upgrades, and so on. To start, let's click on the Tools menu. Then, click on Schedule Jobs menu option, followed by clicking on Scheduler options. this dialog will be displayed. Navigate to General Options. We strongly recommend to leave these defaults unchanged, with the exception of cycle time. Optionally, select which events SpooliT should monitor. Optionally, define if error alerts should be sent to operations and/or administrators' message queues directly on the IBM iSeries. Optionally, define if error alerts should be emailed to operations and/or administrators via emails. Optionally, you can define your automated print options here. Turn on the checkbox to enable this feature, to define the start and end times for each day of the week. Proceed to define the start and end time for automation jobs, for each day of the week. The end time indicates when SpooliT will go to sleep on any given day of the week. Once you are complete, press the Apply button to save your changes. Now, let's take a look at the following. 1. Filtering. 2. Holding, releasing, resetting automation jobs. 3. Starting, pausing, stopping the automation services. If you click on a column heading, you can apply column sorting and column filtering options. If the automation server is stopped, you start it by single-clicking on the archive just above the Always node, then press the green traffic light toolbar button, or via a right mouse click and select Start from the pop-up menu. The SpooliT Automation Service window is displayed. In this case we will resize it, and drag it to the bottom of the screen so we can see both application layers concurrently. If there are reports to be processed, you will start to see log file entries in the bottom automation service window appear. As polling activity is returned, it is displayed accordingly. Sometimes, you may need to temporarily pause all automation service jobs from running. In the bottom automation service window, press the Pause Traffic Light toolbar button. Confirm your choice. The bottom automation service window displays in yellow when it is paused. Similarly, if you want to restart your paused automation server, then click on the green traffic light toolbar button in the below automation service window. Confirm your choice. When it is restarted, the background will appear in green for a short time, before it starts displaying its polling activity, and as reports are processed. To stop the automation server, press the Stop Traffic light. Confirm your choice. It will temporarily show a red background, as it completes its current active job. When the automation service is stopped, the bottom automation service window will disappear, indicating the automation service is no longer running. This concludes our deep dive demonstration into automation rules, including holding, releasing, resetting service jobs, starting, pausing, and stopping the automation services, creating, editing automation rules, and a bunch of other neat stuff too. Importantly, SpooliT can scale with your organizational needs. If you have multiple IBM iSeries, then you can deploy SpooliT Server to multiple Windows servers. Each individual server could process rules for different companies or divisions. If you run hundreds or even thousands of rules daily, then you can load balance processing across any number of Windows servers. The number of Windows SpooliT servers are theoretically unlimited, and do not require additional licensing. It is important to understand that SpooliT licensing is at an IBM iSeries level only, irrespective of the multiple partitions. They are all covered under one single iSeries license. If you have a test iSeries or a sandbox, then you get an additional license free of charge. If you run multiple production IBM I series, then contact us MX and we can provide pricing for an enterprise-wide license. If you have questions about SpooliT, please take the time to go to the Watch and Listen page on our website to see multiple videos and podcasts about SpooliT. If you have technical questions, then first go to our help web page. The help system is comprehensive, and topics can either be read or there are video topics available if you prefer to watch. Visit our tutorials web page to explore rich content in the form of interactive tutorials. If you have questions or need technical support, then do not hesitate to contact us. If you want to discuss a software trial, please contact us. We would be pleased to assist you setting up a free software trial and answering any questions you might have to ensure you hit the ground running. Thanks for taking the time to learn about SpooliT and how it can help transform your workplace. SpooliT by SMX. A trusted partner of many global companies for over 25 years. SpooliT is not some new kid on the block. SpooliT has been operational and battle-hardened over 25 long years of service to the IBM I series community.